In all my years making content, I've never talked about the scary things that have happened. Not scary like danger, but scary like spooky things that happen in jails and in prisons. I don't know why. I just felt like some of them were kind of weird and sacred and like I didn't want to be made fun of. But I have only shared a few with you guys, and I've gotten lots of requests for me to share my spooky, like, prison stories or whatever. And so I'm just going to start sharing them. I was in the county jail one time, and this girl was coming down the hall, and like I guess somebody got caught sight of her because we were all in the day room, just kind of sitting around watching TV and stuff. And this girl was like, "Yo, Chrissy's coming!" And all of a sudden, all the women like started piling up in each other's room, and I was like, "What is going on?" Because I didn't know who Chrissy was, and I didn't know why everybody was getting piled up in their room. So I'm just sitting there at the picnic table, like just watching as this girl comes in, and she's this short girl. She's got curly brown hair, and like she looks pretty normal to me. So this officer is escorting her into like the large area, and she's like, "Yo, whose room is open?" And all the women were like, "Oh, I'm in here with, Beth, or I'm in here with Medea, like I'm in here with somebody." And like I was the only one who didn't have a roommate, and so they were like, "Cisco, you got a new roommate." I was just like, whatever, it's a minor inconvenience, but you get roommates in jail. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, you can't help that. And so this girl comes into the cell, and I'd already taken the bottom bunk, so she was on the top bunk. She kind of puts her bag down, and she walks back out into the day room. She sits at the picnic table, and like the couple of girls who were sitting out there on the picnic tables, like got up and left. They were like, "Yo, what's up, Chrissy?" Like, kind of friendly, but not. And they got up and they went back into their cells, and I was just like kind of observing all this. Like, that night we get locked into our cells. Like, they put us in there and they lock the door, and like free time is over. And so I kind of told Chrissy what's up. Like, I was there first, so I kind of held rank as far as like how the bunk would be run. And so I told her what's up, like, no dirty clothes, don't leave food out, don't be smelling the place up, you gotta have hygiene, stuff like that. And she was just like, "Yeah, sure, no problem, whatever, that's cool." And like she seemed cool to me, and she didn't bother me none. She wasn't disrespectful at all. Like, she just seemed like, I don't know, a normal person. The night passes, all is well. The only thing is I do notice her like whispering in her sleep, kind of like sleep talking, but whatever, that's completely okay. I've had roommates who snore so loud that I couldn't even sleep. So the next morning, I'm in the bathroom and I hear these two girls who are brushing their teeth. They're up by the sink, and I heard the name Chrissy. And then I heard them start talking about her. And I heard what I'm saying, like, "Yeah, I was in her room. She was in my bunk back in '05, and like, this is what happened." And I was like, "What?" And I kind of listened closely, but I couldn't really hear like what they were saying. I couldn't understand, but obviously something happened with Chrissy in '05. And you got to understand, like, that's how jail was. Like, some people were in and out, and they got to know other people, and like they didn't know each other on the street, but they knew each other in jail. Like, that's just how the jail culture was. I grab my roll of toilet paper. I walk back to my cell, and I see Chrissy sitting on the top bunk. She's sitting crisscross applesauce, and she's looking down at the chair, because we have like this metal chair that's like stuck against the wall, and it's like a little stool, and there's a table next to it. And she's like looking down at this metal chair, and she's like talking, like arguing. And I walked in, and she got quiet, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" A lot of people in jail also have like mental stuff, and so I'm not judging. Like, if she has a touch of schizophrenia, like, she sees things, that's okay. Like, that's okay. Later that day, Chrissy gets called for bond hearing, and so she's out of the little jail area. She is with the officers, and she's going to court. And I was like, "Yo, just tell me what's going on with Chrissy." Like, and they start telling me these stories. They're like, "Yeah, Chrissy like she talks to herself, and like some people have said that they saw something in their cell before, like, but only when Chrissy's around," and just some like little spooky things. And I was just like, "Ooh, that's scary," like, tell me more. I was excited. Like, I love spooky, freaky little things like that. Like, I want to get freaked out. There's nothing else to do in jail besides tell little stories like that. And so I'm listening and everything, and I'm loving it. And they're just telling me all these stories about Chrissy and like this guy. And there were different theories about who the guy was, like an ex-boyfriend, and then it was one of her victims, like an old sugar daddy. Like, they had all these different theories about who this guy was that was like a ghost that followed her around. And whatever, she comes back from bond hearing. It turns out she's going to serve like 21 days. I was serving 21 days, but I was already at the end of my 21 days. I think I was at like 18 or 19 at that point. I was fixing to go home. So that night, Oh, and I forgot to tell you, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but that day I went back while she was in bond hearing. I went back into her cell, and like on her bunk, you could see, because just sitting straight up, you could see the top of her bunk. She had like notebook papers, and she had written on them, except for it was like scrawl in a different language. Like if I were to write with my left hand and try to write a letter, that's what it would look like. It was just like wild. I was like, maybe her education level just isn't great. She didn't get to practice, writing. So whatever. I don't know if that's relevant or not. That night, after lights out, I'm asleep and I'm facing the concrete wall. And at some point in the night, I turn over and like I'm rolling over to my other side, and I see somebody who was sitting at the chair. I see them get up and walk. And I was just like, what in the world? Where does she think she's going? Like, we're locked in here. But then I feel her above me in the top bunk. I feel her turning over. So I was just like, I was dreaming. Obviously, I must have been like dreaming or something, something crazy like that. The next night, I was a little bit more freaked out. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I started kind of getting in my head about it. I was like, what did I see last night? Did I see anything at all? I don't know. It's just in my head. And so I was already kind of freaked out. And it was the night before I was gonna be going home. I was leaving the next day. And so I was already not sleeping well, just in anticipation of leaving jail, getting out. Lights are out. We go to bed. I'm tossing and turning, and I hear like whispering in the night, and I was sleeping like on my back, kind of on my side, and I can hear whispering, and I hear her up there like, and I was just like, what is that? What is she doing? And y'all, I knew that if I turned my head and looked over, that I would see something. I just knew it was there. And I was like, you're freaking yourself out. You're freaking yourself out. Like, don't think like that. And I turned just a little bit, and there was a man, completely blacked out, like a shadow man, sitting on that little stool, leaned forward like this right here. And I saw it clear as day. I saw it. Everything, I promise you, I saw it. And she was literally on the top bunk. I could hear her whispering. And y'all, I swear I heard her say, she saw you. And then laughter, like giggling, whisper laughing.
You guys want to hear a scary story? It reminds me a lot of Insidious, but it's real. One time when I was babysitting these two girls, talked about them in a video before this, we were going to call the older one Luna and the younger one Aura. That's what I called them last time. I was babysitting, and the older one had an imaginary friend that she called Pete. I would always sense weird energy in this house. Disturbing, dark, like not good, friendly Casper the Ghost. And then one time, the oldest Luna at the time was, I want to say she was 3 or 4. And the baby, Aura, was like 6 months old. And I had put Aura down for bed. Put her in her little swaddle, got her all set up. She was snug as a bug, cute, perfect sleeping. And me and Luna were out in the living room because I was like, okay, we can play one game together like before you go to sleep, because Aura obviously went to bed a little bit earlier. I think we pulled out like Candyland, some board game, which obviously she doesn't know how to play the ins and outs and the rules because she's 3. But when we were playing, she had another little character, and it was Pete's, right? And every time, I swear to God, I would look away, I'd look back and it would move, and she'd be like, oh, Pete moved it. And I'm like, okay, Luna, like, you obviously moved it, Like, she's 3, and I know she's just like, she doesn't know how to play the game. Now I know it was literally this dark spirit that was moving it, but stay with me. I'm like, okay, Luna, sure. And then out of nowhere, we're playing, and the TV was on in the background, excuse me. And Luna goes, I love this song. And I'm like listening. I'm like, what song, baby? Like, I don't hear any music. And she said, oh, the song that Pete is singing to me. She said, it's a song that my daddy plays on his guitar, because their dad played guitar, I guess. Like, I'd always see the guitar. Sometimes it'd be in the living room, or sometimes it'd be in the parents' room. Like, when I'd go in there to grab stuff for the kids, it was just like always propped against a wall. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Like, remember what we said about Pete? Because I told her I didn't want her talking to Pete, because again, this felt like a dark energy. And it sucked, because every time I was there, I felt like he was sitting in between me and her. Like, he was always, the spirit, Pete, was always hovering. It would never go away. So anyways, I'm like, what song? Blah, blah. And she's like, I'm trying to get her to describe to me again. She's 3. She doesn't really know how to describe it. And she says, no, Pete said he'll play for you. And I said, no, that's okay. Like, want anything to do with it? She said, no, he'll play for you. Just hold on. So I ignore it, and we start playing this game again. Just moving little pieces across the board. And all of a sudden, I hear the strum of a guitar. Just a solo strum, like an off chord. and I just get chills down my back because at this time the guitar was in the parents' room. I only knew that, I hadn't gone in their room that time, but because I heard it and their door was shut. And Luna jumps up. She's like, "Oh, I told you, Riley. Like I told you. Pete said he'd show you the song. It's my favorite song." And I'm terrified. Like I'm trying so hard to act cool. I don't know how this little girl is not so scared. But I'm just like, "Oh, okay, hold on. Let me just go look real quick," because my immediate thought was like, maybe somebody's in the house, like a real person, because that sounded way too real. It literally was just a strum of a guitar. So I go into the parents' room, I turn on all lights, the guitar is just sitting against the wall. Nobody's in the house. I do a sweep, and I'm like really disturbed because every sweep I'm doing, I feel like something is just hovering and following me into every room I'm going into. So I finally sit back down with her. I'm like, "Okay, babe, let's watch like 10 more minutes of the show, and then like we're gonna go to bed." When I sat on the couch with her, it was the first time I felt like not super heavy, overpowering energy. And I'm like, whew, okay, like, but anyways, I was like, okay, this feels a little less heavy. Sorry, my dog's drinking water in the background. She's so loud. So I'm like, okay, I can breathe a little bit. And I pick up the baby monitor right next to us. You guys know what's coming. You've seen the scary movies because it literally was just like that. Pick up the baby monitor to check on Aura, and I literally gag when I think about this because it was so terrifying. I see a hand, right next to the baby. She's sleeping, she's swaddling, and it's a creepy hand where the nails are like this long, and it's just this black shadowy hand just right next to her. And again, this is the first time I said I felt relieved, like I wasn't being followed. It's because it went in the other room. I freak out. I literally sprinted, ran, busted into Aura's room, woke her up because I came in the door so hot. She was crying and just felt that energy in that room was disgusting. I pick her up, I bring her back out to the living room. I'm like trying to explain to the parents when they come home, like they're gonna think I'm insane of why their kids are still awake. And I'm sitting on the couch with the baby and with Luna, and I forgot to turn off the baby monitor. And I literally hear just disembodied voices coming from the baby monitor. Terrifying, out of nowhere, loud. And I literally just shut the baby monitor off. And the baby ended up falling back asleep in my arms. Luna ended up falling back asleep, and she like fell asleep on me, like her little head was on my shoulder. When the parents came home, I was like, sorry, they're just like so sweet, and they just wanted to sleep out here with me. Because I tried again to, like I've explained this in the other video, but I tried to kind of bring it up to them before, how like something I thought was going on in their house paranormal, and they looked at me like I was fucking insane. So I knew I wasn't getting anywhere with that. But that was also one of the terrifying times I experienced babysitting for those kids.
I got a DM from somebody who says that they've been a paramedic for 22 years. They have worked night shifts, they have had weird experiences, and they've always been able to logically explain them away, except for one. I don't know if this person wants to be anonymous, so I'm just going to call him Al. Al said that one night around 1 a.m., he and 3 police officers were dispatched to a call. The 911 dispatcher said that the woman was on the phone saying that it was cold and it was dark and she didn't know where she was. The woman on the phone is not able to give them a location of where she is, but the cell phone is pinging, and the 911 operator is able to track this and kind of figure out where she is, so she sends them to that area. While they are trying to locate this woman, this 911 operator is still on the phone with her, and they are looking around this area. They are not seeing anything. They see a school a little bit up ahead, so they decide that they're going to go check there, see if there's any cars or anything going on. They get there, they do not see anything. As they're standing at the school trying to figure out where to go from here, the 911 operator is able to link the cell phone number to the owner's address. So they head that direction. They get to that house, they go and they knock on the door, and an elderly man answers, and obviously they had just woken him up. At this point, the 911 dispatcher has given the officers the woman's name who is on the phone and the address that the phone number is linked to, and it's also pinging from a cell phone tower nearby. They ask the man who answers the door, "Do you know this woman?" He tells them, "Yes, that's my wife." They ask him, "Is she okay?" This man looks at them and tells him she passed away a year ago. So they let the man know what's going on. They're saying, well, we're getting a call from your wife's cell phone, and they're using her name, and they are saying that it's cold and it's dark and they don't know where they are. Now, as this is being repeated to this man, they're all kind of realizing cold and dark. It was the middle of summer, so it was hot. But this man whose house they're at looks at them and tells them there is no way that that's possible because I still have my wife's cell phone in this drawer in the house. He goes into the house, he gets the cell phone, hands it over to him. It is turned off. Now, at this point, the police and the paramedics tell him, basically, we're going to have to, verify that this is true, that your wife has passed away and she is not calling for help. So they do verify this. His wife had passed away of natural causes a year earlier. Now, the 3 police officers and the paramedic who had responded to this call are obviously freaked out, but they play it down for the man whose house they were at, whose wife had passed away, just telling him, "We're really sorry. This must be a prank call. Like, it's not funny, but we are so sorry." The man closes the door, and all 4 of them go to walk away. They're all just kind of sitting there looking at each other, trying to figure out what the heck just happened. By this point, the 911 operator had verified this woman's name, her date of birth, and her address. Caller was able to give all of this information eventually, because she had actually stayed on the phone for several more minutes after this call was ended, after they had left the property. The 911 dispatcher told the paramedic and the responding officers that it sounded like the woman was in an empty room or a small space because she was echoing. All she kept saying was, "I don't know where I am, it's cold and it's dark and I need help." Eventually, the woman ends the call with the 911 operator simply by saying, "I have to go back now." At that point, the paramedic, the police officers, and the 911 dispatcher have absolutely no explanation for what just happened. They all had verified that nothing nefarious was going on her husband's part, because she had passed away of natural causes a year prior. As he said at the beginning, he's worked night shift as a paramedic for 22 years. He has seen and experienced weird things, but this is the one that he simply just cannot explain aside from paranormal. Especially since the husband had the cell phone still active in the house, turned off, that this woman was calling from. That was crazy. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. Maybe you guys have some ideas on what could have possibly happened. As always, I hope that everyone has a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow me over at the other place where I do longer stuff. Okay, love you, bye.
This is one of the spookier, possibly paranormal stories that I've read, but this girl DMs and she says her name's Crystal, and when she was 17, she was in a really bad car accident. Her friend's car hit a patch of black ice in Michigan. She was a passenger in the car. It could have been worse. Luckily, she was left with just some bruising, broken bones, and some memory loss related to her short-term memory, but also a lot of memories related to her childhood. She remembered large parts of her childhood, but like some parts were just hazy. The summer after the accident, she goes to visit her dad, who lives in Nacogdoches, Texas. I guess he had always lived there since she was small, and she used to spend summers going to his house when she was growing up. She describes it as being like a close-knit town. It wasn't rural or anything, though. Like, most people lived in subdivisions, including her dad. And one night she's over at his house. She decides she wants to go to the gas station and grab some snacks. There was a gas station on the edge of the subdivision. She said it was just like 2 streets, which were well lit and lined with houses. And then at the edge of the subdivision was the gas station. So her and her dad are hanging out on his porch. She's like, "I'm going to walk to the gas station." He's like a little nervous about it considering her accident. She's like, "Oh my gosh, don't treat me like a baby. Like, I'm fine." He's like, "All right, well, I'll be on the porch here waiting for you. Like, hurry up." So she walks to the gas station, gets some snacks, gets some drinks. She's on her way back, and she's passing this one street, which is a cul-de-sac. She said the sun was setting. It was dusk, but it was still pretty light out, but the streetlights had just started coming on, and she happens to look down the street and she sees a girl standing underneath one of the streetlights, and the girl like beckons to her, like, "Hey." She's like, "Crystal, is that you?" And she looks up at her and she doesn't recognize the girl. This girl's just like tall, lanky, with dark brown hair. And the girl starts walking down the street coming toward her, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Crystal, like, I can't believe it's you. I heard about your accident. How are you doing?" Crystal stops and she's looking at her and she's like, "I'm good." And she said she felt really bad because she didn't remember her. She had no idea who this girl was. This girl's like, "Oh, you don't remember me, do you? Like, I'm Carly. Like, we used to play together all the time when we were little. My dad worked with your dad. Like, we live right here." And she motions behind her where there's like a row of houses and then some trees behind them. She's like, "You were always at my house when you were visiting your dad for the summer." And Crystal said she looked at the houses and she like felt like a little flicker of recognition, like something sounded right. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Like, things have been hazy," but she still didn't remember. She said that was pretty weird because like she remembered everybody from her past. Like, it wasn't like she just had blackout periods, but she was like, "I guess it's possible. I don't remember this girl at all." Carly's walking closer to her. She's like, "You should come to my house real quick. Like, I can show you photo albums and like of all the stuff we used to do together. We used to have so much fun. You were like my best friend." And Crystal's like, "Oh, which house is yours?" And she's like, "Oh, I just live right on the other side of those trees right there. Just come with me real quick. I can show you." And Crystal said she just felt this like nagging thing inside of her saying like something isn't right about this. And she's like, "No, it's okay. Like, my dad's waiting for me. Like, maybe tomorrow we can catch up." And Carly's like more insistent. She's like, "No, just real quick. Just come with me. Like, my parents would love to see you." Crystal just lied. She's like, "No, I told my dad we were going to watch a movie. Like, I have to get back." And so Carly's just like, "Okay, like, fine. Maybe tomorrow. Just come find me." So Crystal gets home and her dad's on the porch waiting for her, and he's like, "Oh, what took you so long?" And he's already got like a beer open and everything. And she's like, "Oh, I actually just ran into one of my old friends, I guess, like Carly. She said I used to play with her all the time." And her dad's sitting there and he's like, "Carly?" Crystal's like, "Yeah, she said that you used to work with her dad and she lives right on the other side of those trees behind those houses on that cul-de-sac over there." And her dad's face just goes white and he's like, "You did not play with anybody named Carly." And he's like, "And on the other side of those trees is a construction site. Like, they just leveled it. They used dynamite. They blew up that whole area. On the other side of those trees is a massive pit filled with rocks and rebar." He said, "It's a massive open pit." I said, "Maybe she thought you were someone else." And she's like, "No, Dad. Like, she knew my name. She knew about the accident. She knew where you lived." She's like, "Are you sure I didn't hang out with anyone named Carly?" And her dad just gets real quiet and he's like, "No, like, the only Carly that I know of is a guy that I used to work with had a daughter go missing named Carly like years before you were born, but you never knew her." And Crystal said she's 27 now. She's gone to visit her dad a number of times. She's never run into this girl again. She has actually reconnected with some of the kids that she played with when she went to visit her dad growing up, and none of them remember a Carly. She said she's told this story before because she genuinely does not understand what happened or who she encountered that day. So let her know what you think. She will be reading the comments. If you have a spooky, scary story time, I would love to read it, and I post a new video almost every single day.
I had a follower send me their mimic/doppelganger story, and it is terrifying. According to her, it all kicked off in 2021, and her husband would be gone a lot because he was in the military. He would be like out in the field for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and during those times, she would just feel a presence in her home. At the time, this really freaked her out because she was pregnant with their first child, their daughter, and so she would light prayer candles every single night before she went to bed. It would just give her comfort, and she would just leave them lit throughout the night. And one night she wakes up and they're all out, and she thinks it's weird, but she has to go to the bathroom, so she kind of just ignores it, gets up, and as she's going to the bathroom, she hears what sounds like a woman singing from her daughter's nursery, which is literally right next to the bathroom, like singing, humming. She said it sounded like a lullaby. The nursery at the time was just being used for storage because, of course, she was pregnant. When she leaves the bathroom, like rushing to her daughter's nursery, the humming is just getting louder and louder and louder, and it doesn't stop until she actually opens up the door. Obviously, there was no one there humming. And about 2 weeks later, her husband is home from the field. Well, her husband had just finished using the bathroom. He's kind of coming out to the living room, and when he sees her, he like jumps out of his skin. He's so scared. And she like laughs. She just thinks like maybe she startled him. And he says to her, "Did you just sit down there?" And she says, "No, why?" Like she's on the couch with her cookies, she's under a blanket, she's comfy. And that's when her husband tells her that he just saw her walk into their daughter's room. And he was really confused when this happened because it looked just like her, except for some reason she had long black hair. Over the next couple of months, her husband swears this keeps happening. Like he will see the back of her head, except it's never the back of her head. She just has this long black hair, but she's always wearing the same clothes and it looks just like her. And she'll be walking into a room as he's kind of like walking past. In October of 2021, she gave birth to their first child, their daughter, and she found out shortly after that that she was pregnant with their son. And nothing happens until about a month after her son is born in 2022. And of course, it was one of those times where her husband was gone in the field and she's going to the bathroom. I don't know why the bathroom is attached to so many weird happenings in this place. But as she's in there, she hears a sound coming from her daughter's nursery. Now this is really concerning because when it happened the first time, she was pregnant with her daughter. Now her daughter like lives in that room. And so she immediately gets up from the bathroom. She's going down the hall to investigate. And it sounds like there's something tapping in her daughter's room. My cat has joined us for the story, but she goes into her daughter's room. She's like, "What is this tapping sound?" And that's when she realizes it's the blinds in her daughter's room, like hitting the window over and over and over again, as if somebody is sitting there and like moving them back and forth. She also then notices that her daughter is like upright in her crib. Her hair is a mess. Her daughter is like freaking out, crying. So she immediately scoops her daughter up. She takes her to the bedroom. She has her other child in there. Both of the babies are crying and screaming and everybody's freaked out. And she's on the phone with her in-laws like, "What do I do?" Her father-in-law comes to the home to come check things out, just make sure everything's okay. And of course, nobody's there. She's kind of like, "I'm sorry I called you out. I swear to you, I know what I heard." And shortly after this, that apartment, that place where they lived, actually got broken into. And so they immediately moved to a townhome, which is where the rest of this story takes place. She probably at this time wasn't thinking much about the paranormal activity and the weird mimic stuff from the last place because they're in a new home and she had bigger fish to fry. Like their place actually got broken into. But she would sometimes notice that her daughter's closet light would be on when she would enter into the room and she just would ignore it. She was like, "I don't really want to bring this energy into the new place. I'm not going to acknowledge it." Until one day her husband calls out to her and he says, "Were you just watching me go to the bathroom?" And she calls back from the living room. She's like, "No, I'm on my phone. I'm watching YouTube in the living room." And he says, "I saw you again like last time, but this time you were peeking around the door at me while I was using the bathroom." And of course she's freaked out because her husband just saw that thing again after so much time without any activity. And so she starts cleansing the space pretty routinely and the activity dies down again. And once again, she's like, "Okay, we're in the clear." And then There's an incident where they have a bunch of guests over and her daughter drops a glass, and she decides to put her daughter into her room in this new townhouse just so they can clean up the glass and she won't get hurt on any of it. Her husband is like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. You stay with her. And so she stays in the room with her daughter. They're like laying on the floor playing with toys when suddenly her daughter sits up. And she's like a year and a half, 2 years at this point. And she lets out this blood-curdling scream while looking into her closet, the same closet where the lights had been coming on occasionally, and the original person who sent me this email doesn't know why. She walks around this room and she's telling whatever this is, like, no, leave her alone, get out of here. Eventually, her daughter calms down. And at the time of sending me this email, she had said that her husband was leaving for 9 months. And she felt like the thing was going to act up again once he was gone. I didn't find this email until literally like today, and it was sent a year ago. So I'm going to email her back and ask if anything else happened. But in my original email, she asked for advice. So if you guys have any ideas for how to get rid of this thing, if she's still dealing with it, let her know down below. She'll probably read the comments. But yeah, this is such a terrifying mimic story. So what do you think? Stay spooky, friends.
This is a story I swear I would never tell or talk about again, but my mom really wants me to tell it, so here we go. When I was in 5th grade, a new girl came to our school, and I didn't know her at all, but my mom and dad knew her mom and dad wanted me to like hang out with her. Well, she was in 6th grade. She was a year older than me, and she had 2 younger sisters, and she was there like 2 weeks or something like that, and they set up like a slumber party sleepover thing or whatever. I get over to her house, but first let me add, okay, her house was out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a log cabin that her dad had built, and it was like this 2-story lofty type cabin thing, and her parents were upstairs, but her dad had made like in the girls' room like built-in bunk beds in the wall, so they were like 3 high, right? And the little sister was going to sleep in the floor, and I was going to sleep in the middle, right? So you had to like climb the ladder on the outside of the beds and then like climb into the bed, which I thought was cool, you know, I was fine with it. But immediately when I got to the house that day, it was like heavy, and it kind of felt like something was like the air was thick or something. So she kept acting weird the whole time that I was there, and she would like look to the left and right and back and forth, and I'm like, what are you looking at? And she's like, oh, nothing. And then the little sister goes, she sees this woman. Ghosts weren't like new to me, but I knew this didn't feel like a ghost. It felt like something else. Right? I would see like this dark shadow like show up and then like go away, and then around the corner I saw like these fingers come around the edge and then go like this, like around the door frame, but they weren't like regular fingers. They were like these really elongated black, like, and the nails weren't pointy. They were longer, but they looked like they had been like digging in something. They were like a brown dirt. This was like scary, whatever it was, right? So I'm already like planning my escape. Like I'm already like, okay, I'm going to wait till bedtime and I'm going to call my mom and I'm going to say I'm sick or something, so she has to come and get me. We were out there, like I said, in the middle of nowhere. And then her dad was like, oh man, the phones are messed up again. And he comes in for like dinner and I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean the phones are messed up? So this was like 91, 92, I guess, something like that. And he's like, yeah, they get down sometimes. And I'm like, well, what if I need to go home? And he said, well, you know, I'll take you home. You know, it's fine. It's fine if you need to go home. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck out here, right? Like I'm not going to be like, hey, I need you to take me home, because my dad would have like ripped me a new one. Like, y'all know that he was mean, and he would have been so mad if I would have made this guy bring me home for nothing, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to stay here. Well, that night we go to get into bed and she has jeans on. And I'm like, why are you sleeping in jeans? And she said, because I can't feel her scratch my legs in jeans. I'm like, Phil, who? What do you mean? Who? That little sister goes, the woman, the girl that she sees scratches her legs at night. And I'm like, oh my God. You know, like, oh my God, what do you mean? Well, is she going to try to scratch my legs? And she said, no, because you're in the middle bunk, she only gets mine. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? You've got to be kidding me. Well, we play games, we do whatever. And the whole time I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to see this woman. I've already like seen her hands. Like, what am I going to do? And climb up, we go to get in bed. I'm not tired at all, like not at all. And all I can think about is this woman, right? Like, why is my friend in jeans to keep from feeling her hands? Like, what is going to happen? And under the bottom bed, there was like a nook thing, you know, for like storage or whatever. So something could get under that. And I'm like, oh, you know, so I climb up this ladder thing. I'm getting like sweaty just talking. I'm getting like red just talking about it. That was horrible. I climb up the ladder, I get in the middle bunk. So I'm trapped. It felt like I was in a coffin or something, you know, because the bed was above me and there was a bed below me. So I'm in this box in the wall and I'm like, I can't. I was having like a panic attack. I'm like, oh my God, I can't sleep in here. They had it total darkness, no noise, no anything but fear, right? The only thing I could hear was like my heart slamming in my chest and like my ears were like, whoa, 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 you know, I'm like, oh my God. Then I hear like the bottom bunk, like creak, you know, what's happening down there. And instead of just like not looking, like curiosity, you know, got the best of me. So I lean over, y'all, and this thing is like leaned over her. It's not in the bed with her, but it's like if it was kneeling beside her, and it's just going like dragging down her jeans. It sounded like that, you know, like dragging down jeans. So I'm looking down at this thing, hearing this, and then I look at my friend, and my friend's just like that. She goes. So I freeze, right? So this goes on for a long time. It was me still peeking over the side, like looking, and you hear like, and then she just stops and then like retreats and sucks back under that bottom bunk. Turns out they had a Ouija board in that nook underneath the bed that she had made, a homemade Ouija board underneath the bed. Horrible, horrible. I have never been so scared in my life. Let's just say I made it through the night. First thing in the morning, I was like, I'm ready to go. Because my mom wasn't supposed to come get me till like noon. This was like 9 o'clock. And he's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I don't feel too good. Can you just take me home? I didn't care at that point what my dad said or did. I wanted to get the hell out of that log cabin in the woods. So he takes me home. I tell my mom, and she's like, well, you don't have to go back again. I'm like, no, I'm never going back.
Want to get creeped out? Let's talk about someone else who tried the man in the fields ritual. And by the way, if you don't know what the man in the fields ritual is, it's essentially where you summon this entity to stand in your backyard while you complete some tasks inside your house. And if you complete it within a certain amount of time, you either get physical safety for a whole year, physical and financial safety for a whole year, or physical and financial safety and no negative consequences for any of your actions for a whole year. So anyway, for storytelling purposes, we will name this person Cora. Cora decided she basically wanted to do the ritual for shits and giggles. She wanted to do the 3-hour version, which is the easiest one, to see if she could get physical safety for a year. I mean, the ritual says you'll go a year without even getting a paper cut. So stubbing your toe, not going to happen. Stepping on Lego barefoot, not going to happen. So at 9 o'clock, she went outside into her backyard and said, but who will scare the crows away? And she said it 7 times. And as soon as she said it the 7th time, she heard,
that's not your biggest problem.
Scary. But this girl was a Virgo and I'm a Virgo, so I understand. She was meticulous. Actually, I don't understand. Sometimes I understand. She was meticulous and the bitch closed everything she needed to. She did not miss a single piece of Tupperware, any jars, the apps on her phone, a book laying open on the counter. She didn't miss anything. She had a really small house, so she was actually able to finish closing everything super quickly. By the way, that's what you have to do in the ritual. You have to close every single item in your house and you have to have a safe room with a crucifix in it because it's going to be bad news bears for you, probably if you fuck up. But like I said, she closed everything. She was done within about an hour and a half, so that at that point, she was actually able to go around again and double check everything. And everything was closed in every drawer and every cupboard and every closet in every space of her house. Even the toilet seat, okay, guys? Even the drain and her sink and in her bathtub. Throughout the 3 hours, she does not look outside. She also doesn't see the Ashen Man, but she does keep seeing something out of the corner of her eye, and she's not sure if it's just her mind playing tricks on her or if it's the Ashen Man. At about 10 minutes left to midnight, she goes into her safe room with her crucifix and lays down in bed, closing her eyes and her mouth because you have to do that as well. Creepy. Now, the rules specifically say once you close your eyes, don't open them ever at all until morning. So at some point in the middle of the night, she has no idea what time because she couldn't open her eyes, but she could tell it was still very dark out. So she knew it was not morning. But at one point, she wakes up and thankfully remembers that she can't open her eyes, but she's hearing something and it's terrifying. She can hear footsteps walking back and forth outside of her bedroom door. She said that she thought she was literally going to shit the bed. Like, that's terrifying, guys. I would lose my mind. I would lose it. So creepy. She laid there with her eyes closed, sweating and terrified while she heard the steps going back and forth, back and forth. She doesn't know how long this went on for. She couldn't fall asleep while it was happening, but she thinks it was for about 5 or 10 minutes, nothing too crazy. However, it was, again, walking back and forth past her bedroom door, and then suddenly she heard the footsteps stop and it sounded close, like right near her bedroom door, and she was just holding her breath, laying there with her eyes closed, waiting to see if anything happened. Nothing happened. So eventually she fell back asleep. I don't know how. I would be laying there with my eyes closed until like 6 in the morning. No joke. You know why? I'm a paranormal investigator and I love experiencing paranormal things. Okay. But when you invite something to your home, an entity that specifically is known to you, if you fuck up your ritual, that's terrifying. That's not cool. That's not fun. I don't want to do that. Anyways, the next morning, she wakes up and she's like, okay, I think this ritual is real because there was something walking outside my bedroom door last night. And in her mind, she's like, I've got physical safety for a year. So score. Bob's your uncle. But it's only within a few days that things start to get weird. 3 days since she did the ritual, she's coming home from work, gets inside, and notices that every single drawer, cupboard, closet door, microwave door, everything in the house open. Why? She did the ritual properly. Who's coming back here? Who's coming to hang out? And why are they coming uninvited? Because they were invited the first time. Now they're not invited. Now they're not invited. So she closes all the cupboards, all the drawers, all the closets. The next day she comes home from work. And this is random. Of course, this girl had a locket because that's like such a creepy piece of jewelry. Like it's such a cool, creepy piece of jewelry. But anyway, she had a locket and it had a picture of her grandmother in it who had passed away. She always had it hanging on this little like jewelry tree that she had in her bedroom. She gets home from work. She goes into her bedroom. She's going to change out of her work clothes and notices that the locket is on the ground in the bedroom. And she's like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I didn't do anything that would cause this to fall. I didn't even come near my jewelry this morning. I just put my shit on and went to work. Now, the day after the locket is found, she gets home from work and nothing is amiss, but she has this very strong feeling that she's being watched. Anywhere she goes in the house, she feels like there are eyes on her. And she does acknowledge that this could be paranoia, but she doesn't think it's paranoia because of what happens at night. At around 10:30 that night, Cora crawls into bed and decides she's going to read a book. Try to get her mind off of things. Try to calm herself down. So she's been reading her book for about 45 minutes when she hears, guess, walking in the hallway again. And she lives alone. The girl lives alone. The only pet she has is a fucking goldfish. So this is not normal for her to be hearing someone walking in her hallway. The footsteps are the exact same as the night she did the ritual. Back and forth, back and forth. For about 10 minutes, it's time she can look at the clock. So her eyes are open. But there's no sound of the footsteps stopping exactly in front of her door. And eventually the sound kind of just dissipates. So she's able to kind of convince herself that like, maybe I just imagined that, or maybe like I'm crazy and just super paranoid from doing the ritual. The next morning, Cora's heading out to work again. She goes out her back door to go walk to her garage where her car is parked. When she turns around to lock her back door, in the glass of the door, she sees a reflection of something behind her, a scarecrow. And obviously she is startled and whips around and nothing's there. Again, she's like, okay, I could be imagining this. The next day is a Saturday. Cora doesn't have work. She spends the morning watching TV, drinking coffee, and then starts doing a little afternoon clean. And the TV is off at this point. She's walking through her living room vacuuming when she sees in the reflection of the TV a scarecrow behind her. She whips around again, startled. Nothing's there. Cora is getting more and more freaked out. And that night, she doesn't sleep at all. The next day, which is Sunday, nothing happens. She has a really good day until she goes to bed. She walks into her bedroom, turns off the light, and goes to crawl into bed when she notices a reflection once again in her bedroom mirror, the scarecrow. This is when I would be seeking like spiritual help. I would like be going to anyone I know who knows anything about like spirituality, cleansing, healing, and I'd be like, help me. I fucked up because that's creepy. Anyways, this is Cora's final line of her story and it gives me chills. Every night since then, he's standing closer. I really hope Cora's doing okay. That's all I can say.
This girl named Valerie DM'd me and she said, I knew someone who became possessed after we went into a haunted house. Do you want to hear my story? And I'm like, obviously. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's the way that she told the story or if it's the details, but something inherently just told me that it's true. I don't know if it's because I've experienced paranormal things and I don't expect other people to believe me, but I'm going to share it. Valerie grew up in a very big city and she decided when she went to college that she wanted to experience something different. So she picked a college in a small rural southern town. It's in southern Ohio. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. My grandmother actually grew up in Ripley, Ohio, which it's like country out there. Valerie said when she moved, it was immediately a culture shock and she's feeling very out of place, but she is determined to have a movie-like college experience and she immediately pledges to a sorority. And the sorority lives in a supposedly haunted house. But Valerie doesn't believe in any of that. She's analytical, she's scientific and logic-minded. She does not believe in demons or ghosts. She's actually an atheist. So living in a supposedly haunted house did not bother her. But the college is in a really haunted area and there's even ghost tours that come to some buildings on campus. One day, Valerie and some of her pledge class have to go down into the basement of this sorority house and bring up some boxes for a philanthropy event and then rearrange some board games in a storage area. Now, the sorority house was basically a mansion. It was a massive home, and the basement was divided into a bunch of small divided rooms along a long dark hall. She is one of 7 girls tasked with this reorganization, and so she doesn't think anything of going down in the basement and walking all the way to the far back room. 2 of her pledge sisters are with her, and as they enter this room, they notice that it's at least 10 degrees colder than the rest of the basement. The basement was cold as it was. She says the temperature drop was shocking, and it's the first time in her entire life that she's noticed a change in energy when she entered the room. She said the energy felt oppressive and heavy, and she started to feel this extreme sense of anxiety. Which for her was entirely out of sorts, and she's with these other 2 girls, Megan and Sarah, and they immediately start complaining that the room felt creepy and that they didn't want to be in there anymore. They're pulling some unlabeled boxes off the shelf in one corner of the room when she sees a large dark shadow move in the other corner, and her and Megan immediately turn around. They both witness a large dark shadow that just moves through the wall. Sarah was looking down at a list of items that they were cataloging, and she didn't see anything. But immediately Megan runs out of the room and Sarah and Valerie follow. The 3 of them run upstairs, tell the other girls what happened, and once the adrenaline wears off, they all kind of start laughing about it. But some of the other girls, the older sorority sisters, are spooked, and they start telling the 3 girls about creepy, unexplained things that they've seen in the house. But it's fine, it becomes a funny little joke, and the entire sorority has dinner together. But that night, Valerie goes to bed, and she has these terrible dreams of being suffocated. And the nightmares continue. They're very vivid, very scary, and the content varies, but she says in every single dream she felt like someone was oppressing and suffocating her. She woke up from all of these dreams in like a cold sweat, feeling crushed and waking up gasping for air. So they have chapter meetings every Monday, and the next Monday, Megan missed the chapter meeting. So Valerie didn't see her for almost 2 weeks. Valerie is working her shift at the cafe in the student center when Megan and Sarah walk in, and Megan looks terrible. She has dark bags under her eyes like she hasn't slept in weeks. Valerie says her skin was sunken in, like she'd lost some weight, and Valerie actually asks her if she's okay, and Megan explains that she's just had the flu for 2 weeks and just has not been sleeping well. And before Valerie can even say anything about her own dreams, Megan says that she's been waking up in cold sweats, having vivid dreams about being choked or drowning. Up until this point, Valerie said that she hadn't given too much thought to what she knew she saw in the basement. But when she tells Megan about the dreams that she's been having, Megan's hand started to shake. Megan and Sarah stay in the cafe throughout the rest of Valerie's shift, and when she gets off, they all go back to Megan's dorm room to watch movies and talk about it. She actually said that night was really fun because she didn't know those girls very well, and that kind of solidified the 3 of theirs friendship. Then in the middle of the movie, Megan says she wants to go to sleep, and she asked the other 2 girls to leave, which Valerie said was a little bit jarring, but because she didn't know her that well at this point, she didn't know if it was out of character or not, so her and Sarah just left. 3 days later, another sorority sister and Sarah find Valerie between classes, and they tell her Megan's been acting very strangely. She's been crying out and screaming in her sleep, pacing the room in the middle of the night, and during waking hours generally being very messy and aggressive. She's been really mean to Sarah out of nowhere. They've been friends for a while, and this is totally out of character, and she's never acted like this before. In fact, Sarah says that Megan would always pick up after her, arrange her shoes by the door while she was out. She described it as a light switch being flipped, and it was getting so bad that Megan was actually being transferred to another open room in the dorm. The girls decide that they're going to report it to their older sorority sisters, and maybe they can get her some help or get her in with a guidance counselor. Meeting happens, and Megan leaves livid, and she finds Sarah and starts screaming at her about how she's trying to get her kicked out of the sorority and out of school, and she's going off, and then in the middle of it, she just stops. Her face goes very calm, and she goes, "Just forget it." She becomes very calm, and she leaves. A few days later, she comes back into the cafe while Valerie is working, and Valerie says she looks better, not as tired, but she said she was walking with like a different kind of swagger, like she wasn't herself. She says she just looked different, like her face had changed, and Megan comes up and orders something, almost like she doesn't even know Valerie. She's standing very erect, and at first Valerie just thought she was mad at her. So Valerie gives her drink and her receipt. Megan takes her stuff, turns to walk away, and as she's walking away, she stops, turns around, looks at Valerie dead in the eye, and says, "It was nice to see you again." But Valerie says it wasn't her voice that came out of Megan's mouth. The hair on Valerie's arm stood at its end because it was like something or someone was wearing Megan's skin. Megan stopped coming to sorority chapter meetings, although she was the source of a little bit of gossip around the house. And then they found out like 2 weeks later that she had just up and left one day, leaving her room a complete mess. To this day, none of them have ever heard from Megan. Valerie says that periodically she tries to find her online to know that she's okay and that maybe she just went through a depressive episode or something. But Valerie says she cannot stop thinking about the way that their dreams matched up and the way that Megan talked to her the last time they saw each other. What do you think this was? Valerie will be in the comments, although she wanted this story to be anonymous, and keep sending me these stories and I will keep posting them in this playlist. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last home healthcare video that I'll be making. I have to double check my book, but around that time I was always writing things down whenever they happen, but I'll have to double check and let you know. So let's get into it. So around this time, I was packing a bag about, 3 days, sometimes even 2 weeks, and I'll be going to these clients' houses. I was working for this home healthcare company. And so I packed the bag for the 24th, 25th, and 26th of December, and I was at this woman's house. Now, I had already been to her house months before. I had been there consistently for months, and nothing ever happened in her house. So here we are. This is a small house. We're up in the living room and we're dancing. She likes to dance. And so we're up there dancing, having a ball. And I noticed a lot of new decoration. I'm like, oh, you've been decorating? She's like, yeah, the other girl, whenever she's on shift, she helps me decorate. I'm like, cool. The doorbell rings. I go to the doorbell. I said, go to the doorbell. I go to the door. I opened the door and it was my coworker, the woman that she was just talking about. And she brought this chair. And I'm like, you brought a chair? She was like, yeah, it's adding to our decoration. This is something that we like doing together. I'm like, okay, cool. That was sweet. So she brings the chair in. When she brought the chair in, she set it all the way at the end of the hall. And it had this painting that was over it. So I'm like, okay, that's sweet. So we continue our stuff. The lady leaves. We continue dancing. And then the woman wants to get in bed. So I put her in bed. Fast forward to after I put her in bed, I put the motion sensors down just in case she gets up. So the motion sensors started going crazy. And I looked at the camera and she's laying in bed. She's knocked out. So finally I stand up, and when I stand up to go check and peek my head around the corner, there's this dark figure sitting in the chair that my coworker had just brought into the house. Can't make out if it's a man or a woman just yet, but it was a very dark figure, and I heard stomping, but it didn't sound like feet. And then I look over and it has like this cane in its hand, just stomping it on the ground, on the floor. So finally I get up, I run over to my duffel bag, and I get my Bible out, and I get to praying. And it's just sitting there looking at me like, and I said, so you just not gonna go? Like, you just not gonna leave? So then once I started to get aggravated and I started to really be really forceful with the words from the Bible, that's when it stood up and it walked into the bathroom, and then it walked back out. But when it walked back out the bathroom, it did this high jump in the air. Like, okay, what was that about? After it did that little high jump, that weird thing, it disappeared from in front of me. But I heard the motion sensor, so I walked over to the camera. And when I walked over to the camera, I see his face. Yes, it was a he in the camera, and he's pointing at my client. So, of course, I'm aggravated. I go back there and I flick the lights on. I didn't care if she was asleep. I was just worried because I know you ain't here for her. Not right now. Not right now. So then fast forward, I played it off to the woman like, oh, do you have to use the bathroom? I'm so sorry that I flicked the light on like that. And so she's like, oh, no, I'm okay. So she lays back down. Once I go back out to the living room, I get to praying. I get to drawing crosses over all the doors, over all the windows. But next thing you know, I feel something walk behind me. And when I felt it, I turned around and he's right here in my face, like right here in my face. I almost dropped to the floor, y'all, but I couldn't do it because then he'd be thinking that he had one up on me. So that entire night, he would just randomly pop up in my face. He would randomly pop up on the sofa, or he would be sitting in that chair that my coworker brought. Now, this is the scariest part. The scariest part is the fact that right after he left up out of my client's room, I could hear her gasping for air like she needed me. And so I ran in there and I sat her up on the edge of the bed, and I'm like, are you okay? And she said that she said, I'm not ready to go yet. I'm not ready to go. Now, all this time, she's never talked like this. And so I'm just like, you ain't got to go yet if you don't want to. I think what made me more nervous about it is the fact that it was a dark figure that came to collect her. At that point, I was just like, do you want to pray with me? We had never prayed together before, but in that moment, she wanted to pray. So we prayed, right? So fast forward to while we're praying, he just sat down. Like, I wait. So I think that scared me too, because what has this woman done in her life that is so terrible to have a dark figure come to collect her and take her somewhere, and not even a prayer can stop it, can stop her from going with him. Now, here's the even scarier part.
I got a feeling to look outside. So I went ahead and I looked out the window. And when I looked out the window, there were 2 other dark figures standing on the sidewalk. That scared the crap out of me because I know y'all better just be here for her. So I hear knocking on the door. Of course, I'm not answering it because I just looked out the window. I saw y'all out there. I'm not opening the door. And so the woman, she starts getting hysterical and she is like really going crazy. I'd never seen her like this before. And so do y'all know, like probably not even 24 hours after I left, that woman passed away. She passed away, and in my head, I felt so bad, but in my head, I was thinking like, oh my God, this family gonna think I'm the Grim Reaper.
Daughter was 3. She came in my room in the middle of the night, woke me up and said, Mommy, can you please get the little girl out of my room? And I'm sleeping. I'm like, what little girl? She's like, the little girl, she's jumping on my bed. She wants to play with me. She won't get out of my room. I'm like, oh, just sleep with me. So she slept with me. The next day, I didn't think anything of it. Then she comes to me and says, I'm so sick of Daddy moving my toys around in my dollhouse. He comes in my room and plays with my dollhouse and moves them all around. I'm like, I highly doubt your father's doing that. He probably banged into it by accident, making your bed or something. This went on for pretty much every morning. Somebody's rearranging my dollhouse. Didn't think anything of it at all. The only reason I thought of it was because one night, me and my husband come in from outside, and our oldest daughter comes and says, oh my gosh, Mom, Dad, the freakiest thing just happened. And we're like, what? And she's like, I came downstairs and Jen was in the kitchen. And then I see her walk by, so I walk to follow her in her room to see if she's okay. And I see her in her bed sleeping. But she was just walking. So I wanted to make sure that she wasn't tricking me. So, I tried to wake her up, but she was sleeping. She wasn't joking. I think I saw a ghost. And I'm like, oh crap. Jennifer said there was a little girl in her room. I wonder, So the next day I say to Jennifer, what does the little girl look like? And she said, she has long blonde hair, blue eyes, and she's white. She looks like me. Okay, because my daughter had long blonde hair, blue eyes, and I said, is she your age? And she said, no, she's younger than me. She's probably 2 or 3. Now my daughter was 4. Maybe 4.5. So I'm like, holy crap. So, I'm on the phone with my mom and my sisters, and I'm like, I'm freaking out. And I'm like, what the hell do I do? And my sister reminds me, I trash picked that damn dollhouse, like right when this whole thing started going. But you don't notice little things, right? I was like, oh my God. I brought a spirit into my house by trash picking this like handmade built dollhouse. I thought was beautiful. And that's the dollhouse the furniture was being arranged in. Her furniture. It didn't come with furniture. I just trash picked the dollhouse. Anyway, long story short, we ended up burning the dollhouse in the fire pit to try to get rid of the spirit. And then maybe 6 months later, my daughter comes to me and says, oh my gosh, Mom, we burned that little girl's dollhouse, and then she burned our house down because we were living in a hotel because our whole entire house burned down. Coincidence or creepy crawly? I have no idea.